Welcome to the Visionary Chronicles, a podcast dedicated to uncovering the strategies and insights that drive innovative, disruptive businesses. Join us as we explore the mindsets, cultures, and solutions powering the next generation of industry leaders and creative trailblazers. Whether you're seeking to inject new life into your organization or spark transformative growth, the Visionary Chronicles is your guide to executable, cutting-edge business strategy. Hello and welcome to the Visionary Chronicles. Again, thank you so much for joining us again today. I know your time is very valuable, but hopefully you found through the Visionary Chronicles, either through you directly finding it or through others, you found what we talk about to be useful. And for me, the most beneficial thing, as I always say, is when you're able to apply what we talk about here in the Visionary Chronicles to your daily business, either personally or professionally. So today we're going to talk about, and this is the first time we've actually had this request. And what I love about it is the first time that we've actually done it is a series. And the series is called The Road to Visionary Leadership. So if you didn't catch the last episode, that was our Chronicle 1. This is Chronicle 2. And Chronicle 2, we're going to talk about culture. And not just culture, but building a culture of innovation. You know, how do brands do this? How do these visionary, great generational brands that we talk about do this? And I thought it was really interesting. Is a lot involved with this road to visionary leadership. And again, I thank you for those who reached out. We've got a lot of information we've talked about in the Visionary Chronicles, and a lot of this that we can compile into a series like The Road to Visionary Leadership. So again, if you haven't watched, I've sent the video as well as the audio on this one, is Chronicle 1. Make sure you check out Chronicle 1, and then we'll move on to Chronicle 2, which is building a culture of innovation. Again, we're in a new series on the Visionary Chronicles, and it's called The Road to Visionary Leaderships. And this series is actually inspired by my new book I'll be releasing in July. 18 months of hard work after my first book, which is a bestseller, The Visionary Brand, the success formula behind the world's most visionary brands. My second book is called The Visionary Leader, the success principles of the world's greatest visionaries. And it's currently available for those who are interested for pre-sale now at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and all global retailers have the book currently available for pre-sale. So very proud of that, and very proud of those who actually took me up on the advanced reader copies. Those who are interested in providing a review for the Visionary Leader, just reach out to me directly. Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at liquidmindsite, liquidmindsite.com. You'll possibly have your quote in the book. So I would appreciate the reviews that people had taken up the last time on Chronicle 1 on the Road to Visionary Leadership, where I put this offer out there. So again, for those who are interested, it's on pre-sale right now, but we're actually sending out what they call advanced reader copies of the ebook. So let me know if you're interested to provide a review. I would greatly appreciate it. And always, if there's any questions, anything you may have, I would certainly be interested in listening or hearing from you in regards to any questions you might have. Again, feel free to reach out to me directly. And again, this whole series is based off The Visionary Leader, my new book, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionaries. And in this episode, what we're going to break down is what it means, number one, to build and sustain a culture of innovation. And I say sustain because it's a critical term when you talk about a culture. And many of us have seen with cultures where they break down. And what we mean by that is that these supposed visionary, these leaders come in, let's just say it is a visionary that left the company. And someone new comes in, the culture breaks down, much less a culture of innovation breaks down. And you need to sustain that in order to be successful. That's a given. Through thick or thin, good times, bad times, whatever it may be, kind of these storms of life and storms of business, you need to maintain your culture of innovation. So that's the first thing that we're going to talk about. The second is why visionary leaders prioritize innovation over What I love is imitation. And I say innovators innovate, imitators imitate innovators. And so when you look at innovation, it's truly something that when you look in a design room, and I've led, fortunately, many design teams across global iconic brands like TaylorMade, Adidas, Oakley, and all of these iconic brands that I've been associated with and or worked with Liquid Mind on prioritize innovation. And what I mean by prioritizing innovation is they don't care what the competition is doing. What they find is either adaptable technologies, adaptable services, something that they can do better, and asking always the question, why? Why does it have to be this way, and what can we do to make it better for our customers, our community, and many times things that they realize they don't even need that you've discovered that they actually want to have. So imitation is never a path to innovation. And imitation is for commodity brands. I talk about this very, very frequently, that you don't want to be a commodity brand if you're an innovator. It's a path once you've gone down that's very tough to turn around. And the reason for that is called two words: brand equity. You've got a community that understands you've either on three tiers, one of three tiers: good, better, best. And if you don't prioritize innovation over imitation, you're going to be always in that good tier. You want to be in the best tier. So start there and stay there and sustain that culture of innovation no matter who's leading your brand or company. And number three we'll talk about is strategies. Strategies to create a workplace that fosters creativity, risk-taking, and long-term thinking. And then we'll talk about some case studies from companies like Apple, Tesla, Pixar, and those that have transformed industries. And there's a difference between imitation, incremental improvements, innovation, and disruption. Transformation is done through disruptions. Apple transformed and disrupted the music industry. So as we dive in, remember, innovation is not a department. It's a mindset. It's a big difference. You can't slap a word on a door and call that design room the innovation engine. It doesn't work that way. It's a mindset with those who are committed to being best in class in a premium brand. So let's start out with what defines a culture of innovation. It's a great question. So innovation isn't just about new ideas. It's about execution of those ideas. And I frequently use this example, and I think in this case, I'll use it again. But you think about concept car designers, and I love them. I've worked with many of them over the years, and they're probably the most frustrated designers on the planet. Because what they put on the board very rarely, if ever, comes into reality unless they're designing supercars like Lamborghinis. So the thing you want to make sure of it is the mindset with a company. So it's an execution of the concept or the idea that you want to innovate. So an idea or an innovation is only as good as your ability to commercialize it. So great companies don't just encourage creativity. They create environments where new ideas are cultivated, tested, and implemented. So again, I'll say great companies don't just encourage creativity, they create environments where these new ideas are cultivated, tested, and implemented. What I mean by that is when you look at a design department, is it mixed in with the product department? Is it mixed in with the marketing department? And or is it an environment? A true environment like what we had at Oakley, where this was branched off from the rest of the company, and it almost became a secret environment that only very few people were allowed to go into, and that was the case. So it's a super cool environment that you create for these designers in order for them to come up with new ideas, enhance the creativity of the team, limit disruptions, and keep a sole focus around implementing these ideas and commercializing them. Because what you want is an idea that around that idea, you've actually got a story that's interesting to those that want to purchase. So when you look at this, again, great companies don't just encourage creativity, they create in that environment. So what does this look like? So defining innovation is, true innovation is the intersection. Okay, it's the intersection of creativity, execution, and impact. And impact is a word that's used very infrequently when we talk about innovation. You want to have a direct impact on who you're trying to provide this new product to or service that you want to give to your community. It's about solving real problems in ways that move the needle. So that's number one, is defining innovation and what it means. It's different than many other people who define innovation. Many times, and most often with Liquid Mind, when we whiteboard this with our brands, when we say define innovation, it's really just an incremental improvement that they're talking about. So innovation is not incremental, it's disruptive. Disruption is innovation on steroids. So when we talk about true innovation, it's the intersection of creativity, execution, and impact. It's kind of like this three-legged stool. You can't have one without the other two and have a truly defined innovation environment. Number two is, what is this innovation paradox we talk about? The best companies don't chase trends. They set them. Visionary brands like Apple, Tesla, Nike innovate, not for innovation's sake, but to enhance their brand purpose. And this goes back to culture. When you talk about culture, one of the words you want to always keep in mind is, what is your purpose? What are you trying to achieve with your brand in order to drive brand equity and a community that stays loyal? This is a big one. And they don't innovate for innovation's sake. They need to enhance, encourage, and ingrain into those who have a passion for the brand, a purpose for what they're doing, regardless who's at the top of the company. But those that are at the top, the visionaries, need to ensure that that vision is instilled on a day-to-day basis, and that is what they need to do, achieve, and work with on their team every day. So number three is the risk and reward equation. What we mean by this is innovation requires courage, okay? I am not discounting the fact that you need to have courage in order to innovate. The reason for that is a word called risk. No great product in the history of our country has ever been developed without first failing, risk, reward. It isn't reward, fail, risk. Reward is at the end of failing. It's at the end of risking everything you have with the company in order to move the needle and have a purpose and a passion around what you're doing as a brand. Even if you fail, that is a reward, because you've moved one step closer to moving your brand and leapfrogging over competition before they've even thought about what you're trying to achieve on your end. So a risk and reward equation is innovation requires courage. Embracing failure as a part of the process. You need to embrace it. Don't think you can't risk without failing. It doesn't work. If you feel that you've actually commercialized a product and you've risked something and not failed and achieved that commercialization, you haven't risked anything. You're a commodity brand that's imitated others in either and or an incremental improvement to what you're currently doing. Edison once said, "I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways it won't work." And that was the electric light bulb. Now, I'm not saying you need to do 10,000 experiments. At some point, you got to stop bloodying your head on the wall. But what I am saying is give it one more try. If each try that you're actually moving closer towards realizing your dream, keep moving. And a case study is in Apple. And I love case studies because it gives you kind of a visual depiction of what I'm talking about. is creating a culture of relentless innovation. And relentless is a key word there as well. Relentless goes towards risk. Relentless goes towards courage. So creating a culture of relentless innovation. How'd they do this? It's just a case of when Steve was there, Apple's DNA is built on visionary leadership and a culture of risk-taking. Under Steve, this was emphasized. And I always qualify this with Apple. Do I think that they are the leaders in innovation today? Do I think they've sustained the vision? I actually think that they've surfed the innovation pipeline that Steve created for them for a decade is coming to an end. Unless they come up with something that's not an incremental improvement, is something that actually disrupts a product, an industry, or service. The thing that Apple is surviving on right now is this beautiful ecosystem that Steve created when he was there. Everything that we touch is integrated with Apple. So that's why they are so valuable as a company, is because they have created an ecosystem. It almost comes to the point where you look at a leader, and we do this with many leaders as big brands, and this is mainly large cap companies that we work with. And we say, just don't screw it up. And sometimes that's a perfectly fine strategy. But understand, if you're going to take that, what I call Sony risk, the Walkman risk, selling 200 million units and never improving the product, that's fine. Surf it as long as you want, but understand it's going to come to an end at some point, and it's not going to be pretty. So what does this look like in the DNA that Apple built? This visionary leadership and this culture of risk-taking. First is they had user-centric innovation. What does that mean? Apple doesn't just build product, it builds experiences. Think about it. When you have the ability to build an experience with people, that they engage with your product, whether they are running, whether they are walking, whether they are buying groceries, riding in their car, whatever it is, you're creating this journey with your customer, this experience with your customer. So it's a user-centric innovation that somebody that didn't have it before didn't realize they needed it, that you've created for them. The second is a cross-functional collaborations. Yes, design product team need to work with marketing and sales. And the iPhone is a result of hardware, software, and design teams working seamlessly. Think about your company and ask the question, is there any abrasiveness between your pillars of commercialization, product, marketing, and sales? If there is, you have a problem. If there isn't, you've got a streamlined process to creating a product that could potentially disrupt an industry. I'm not saying you'll never have disagreements, but you can't have your pillars, product, marketing, and sales, fighting amongst each other. You need to have cross-functional collaboration if you're ever going to sniff being a risk-taking culture. And number 3, I love this with Apple, is fearless experimentation. And this goes back to Steve. The original iPod and iTunes ecosystem disrupted the music industry when competitors resisted change. And interestingly enough is, when Steve created the iPod, his objective was not to create a music player with 1,000 songs in your pocket. The beautiful thing with Steve was he wanted to disrupt an entirely different industry that Apple at the time had nothing to do with. So he basically crushed the music industry and completely disrupted it with the creation of iPod and iTunes. And this ecosystem still exists today. So the key takeaway on this case study is innovation just isn't about new products, okay? It's about revolutionizing experiences and thinking differently. The second is, what's the role of leadership in innovation? And I say visionary leaders don't just approve innovation, they inspire it. So if you're not an inspiring visionary leader, you can't inspire anybody. So the visionary leader, I always say, isn't always the smartest guy in the room. He's the most passionate guy or gal in the room. They can instill the bloodlines and the DNA of a visionary, risk-taking culture just by inspiring your team and members of the company to inspire them to aspire. Aspire is, hey, we want to take over one of our competitors. We want to gain market share, whatever it is. But the visionary sets the vision and the inspiration for the brand and what you stand for. So the other is creating psychological barriers. Employees need the freedom to challenge the norms without fear of failure. Steve Jobs built Apple on a foundation of relentless questioning. It's almost like the Socrates principle. And it's asking questions with a question. And eventually, those that were asking the questions would come up with the answer without Steve saying anything. And this relentless questioning led to some of the greatest inventions that we still use today. So these freedom to challenge industry norms. Well, we can't do that. Well, that's something that in the dictionary for relentless, innovation-driven brands take out of their dictionary. We can't. Yes, you can. Find a way. These are words that visionary companies embrace. So make sure that you give them the freedom to challenge the norms of the industry. Otherwise, you'll just be status quo like everybody else. The third is actually encourage cross-disciplinary collaboration. So I say some of the greatest innovations happen at the intersection of different fields. And this is sometimes what I call adaptable technologies. The tech industry disrupting music industry. So this is a great example. I love to use the examples. And Leonardo da Vinci and Steve Jobs, they're all visionaries that I've outlined in my book. Leonardo da Vinci combined science, engineering, and art, and is one of the greatest visionaries in the world. And not a lot of people know this. And that's why there's so few visionary companies. And the next is empower. Don't control. Leaders have to guide the process. I get it. But don't micromanage it. Innovation thrives when teams have ownership over their ideas. And a case study of this is with Elon Musk, of course, Tesla. They're reinventing an industry against the odds. Think about it. ICE cars have been around for centuries. And so what you want is to create an entirely new ecosystem first. And I had outlined this a while back. I think it was probably about 10 episodes ago where I talked about Ford's EV failure in their creative process and how they went about planning the process and implementing the process of EVs, going after Tesla without any ecosystem in place to do it. So first that Elon did was breaking industry barriers. While legacy automakers resisted EVs, Musk bet on the future. It's a huge risk. And eventually, if you can see the future and what I call as future casting, very few visionaries have this. Elon has it in spades. He bet on the future because he knew what the future looked like. The second is vertical integration. As a visionary brand, make sure that you have vertical integration wherever possible. Tesla built its own batteries, software, and charging infrastructure for complete control. And that's where all these legacy car companies lost traction. It's the egg before the chicken. You can't have a successful disruptive industry and transition into EVs without having the infrastructure first. Why do you think people have charge anxiety? They can say this is a beautiful car, but it's a beautiful car, but where am I going to charge it? Well, we're working on that. You can't work on the infrastructure when you've disrupted an industry that depends on it. It's ridiculous. And why Elon was so brilliant in building this EV infrastructure first and then building the car. Because the first question they're going to ask is, it's beautiful, but where am I going to charge it? And all of a sudden, he's got these Tesla superchargers already in place. And he also explains in very simple terms how your car gets charged, when your car gets charged. Ford, GM, none of these brands, legacies, had any idea what they were doing on EV to start. I mean, they're getting better, but they have such a long ways to go. Now it becomes just an adoption curve. And, that's what Tesla's fighting a little bit now, but eventually they'll command additional market share because they have the infrastructure. And the other piece on innovation that Tesla had was what we call iterative innovation. Tesla vehicles receive over-the-air software updates, refining how cars evolve. I was with a friend early on that had purchased a Tesla, and all of a sudden when I'm sitting in the car, it turned off, and then it turned back on, and I said, hey, what was that? And he said, well, I'm getting a software update. And I said, wow, that's crazy. So this iterative innovation to have software updates without having to bring it into a service station, how beautiful is that? You can't tell me any one of us or anybody that's listening that wouldn't be a great innovation, not have to go into a car dealership and have your car updated with software. You could just do it on the fly. That's a huge innovation. So the takeaway here is a visionary leader is not always the smartest person in the room. I talk about this. They bring out the best ideas in those around them. They're passionate. They're inspirational. So the next piece is strategies for building a culture of innovation. What's this look like? How do you foster innovation with your company? And number one is establish a clear purpose. Purpose is different than vision. Purpose is, why do we exist today? Vision is, here's what we're going to do within our purpose. Visionary brands innovate with intention. Okay, Tesla isn't just about electric cars. It's about revolutionizing sustainable energy and how to use it. The second is you want to break down your bureaucracy. The biggest killer of innovation, what is it? I'll give you a second to think about it, and then I'll tell you what it is. It's red tape. I don't care if you're a small company or a big company. The resistance to want to make a decision, that's red tape. Having to pass paper between 20 different people before something has made available that is approved. So keep processes agile, allowing ideas to move from concept to reality quickly. And the next is reward bold thinking even if it's a failure. You all are going to sign off on the idea and the concept. So don't punish failure. Reward it. Because that's the incremental improvements that lead to disruptive innovations. And that's the difference between incremental improvements. They stop on the first step where they see an improvement versus disruption keeps moving. Incremental stops, disruption keeps moving. So instead of punishing failure, reward experimentation. Jeff Bezos built Amazon with a fail fast, learn faster philosophy. And look where they're at today. They continue to innovate. They continue to take risks. So the next is encourage entrepreneurship. What do we mean by that versus entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is whether you're a small company, large cap company, and we deal with this with Liquid Mind because we're always brought in on the ideation phase. How do we help our company, big, small, startup, to continue to innovate? So you got to give employees the freedom to think like entrepreneurs. This is employees that you hire. Many times people don't think this way. Leaders don't think this way. So this could be a project that they're working on, a new idea that they're working on, a new product or a service that they're working on. And again, what did we talk about early on is in creating an environment where ideas thrive. Google's famous 20% time led to breakthroughs like Gmail. And what do you mean by 20% time? Is 20% of their time is dedicated to just thinking about ideas that could drive Google to the next level. So let's look at a case study here. Pixar. So Pixar, was an animation company that Steve Jobs had purchased. So the power of a creative culture is what I call it. So this is a case study. So Pixar under Ed Catmull and Steve Jobs became the world's most innovative animation studio by implementing several things. Not just one thing, several things. So what the first thing they did was they had what they called brain trust meetings. Filmmakers openly critiqued their projects they were working on without hierarchy. It could be anybody, ensuring honest feedback. That's the first thing, is that don't try to blow smoke up anybody's tail. You need to have honest feedback. Is this right for the brand? Is it right for the company? Does it meet our expectations? All of these questions from a purpose-driven brand and innovation-driven culture ask these questions. And the second is creative freedom. Employees were always encouraged to take risks without fear of failure. It just was part of their culture. They knew it was the DNA. They said, hey, I got a great idea. Hey, sounds great. The brain trust pulls it together and go, let's start implementing it. So they had the creative freedom to do whatever they wanted as long as the idea was approved through the brain trust. And they also learned from failure. Early versions of Toy Story were scrapped multiple times before they perfected it. And think about that. That is something that the first time you've ever seen it on the screen was with Toy Story. That animation that took it to another level. And they continued to perfect it today, and they disrupted the animation movie industry. So the key takeaway here is the culture of innovation starts at the top, but it thrives from within the brand in your company. So when every team member sees themselves as part of the creative process. So make sure that you have that culture. So again, on what I call these final Chronicle number 3 here, the path to visionary leadership, I had some thoughts. And the first is letting you know that innovation is a journey. It's not a destination. You're going to continually be hitting new points, striving to continue to innovate for your brand, or hopefully disrupt where it allows you some leeway over your competition. So as a leader, your role is not just to spark innovation, but to sustain it, to make it part of your company's DNA. And ask yourself this question. Is my company operating out of habit, or are we really pushing boundaries? And the reason I ask that question is when we're working with our brands with Liquid Mind, 9 times out of 10, so you're not alone, the leaders say they're so busy they don't have time for this. And that to me is ridiculous. How can you not have time for this when it's the most critical piece of your future success? So ask you that first question. The second is, are you building the future or just reacting to it? Are you reacting or responding? That's a critical one as well. Do you see the future? And if so, how are you going to adapt to the future and successfully ingrain your brand to building your future? So remember, visionaries just don't follow trends. They set them. So I want to thank you for tuning in to episode 186 of the Visionary Chronicles. And I always say, if you found this valuable, be sure to subscribe. Hopefully you'll leave a review. We always, always, always appreciate reviews, and we acknowledge those reviews. And in this case, if you leave a review, we will give you a free copy of my new book, The Visionary Leader, The Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionaries. So please leave a review if you could, or subscribe, or share it with other visionaries you feel might find this useful. So stay tuned. Episode number 4 is actually going to be really interesting because we're going to talk about strategic foresight and planning. So until next time, keep pushing boundaries, innovating, and leading with your vision. And whether you're an aspiring leader, seasoned entrepreneur, whatever you are, simply seeking personal growth, the Visionary Leader and the Road to Visionary Leadership series we're talking about today will guide you on your journey and hopefully have a lasting impact. So let's take this first step together, and hopefully you find this useful. So as we wrap up this episode again with the Visionary Chronicles, I have a great opportunity. Again, I wanted to reiterate, I talked about in the beginning of the episode, my upcoming book, The Visionary Leader, the Success Principles of the World's Greatest Visionary Leaders, is nearing its release in July, and I'm inviting you to be part of this journey with me. It's been 18 months, long journey, but I appreciate you and my audience so much, and all the feedback you give me is so beneficial. And a lot of this content is driven by what I talk about here in the podcast. So if you're interested in receiving in what I call an advanced reader copy, my ebook, and sharing your thoughts as an early review, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me directly at Brian, Bryn, at Liquid Mindsite, LiquidMindsite.com, and I'll ensure you are among the first to experience the insights and strategy from this, hopefully transformative book. The early reviewers have been extremely positive, so we're really excited about getting this one out there. So again, thank you for your continued support. I look forward to hearing from you. As I always say, stay true, stay authentic, be different, be great, enjoy the journey along the way, and I appreciate your time as always. Have a great day, and we'll talk on the next Visionary Chronicles.